Hi, everyone, and welcome back for another fabulous interview with a guest speaker, Aviel Brodkin from Portland, Oregon. You should just know my whole family was so excited that I was going to be interviewing you today. I told my husband and he went, woo woo, because we've been trying to get you to do more online. And we kind of believe very strongly that we need like an Aviel Brodkin YouTube channel, and all your wisdom and knowledge needs to be flooded into the world right now. So, but I'll tell you something cute. In the car on the way to school, dropping my kids off at the school that Aviel created and has been the principal there for the last 10 years, I said to Shalom, my youngest child, I said, you know, I'm going to be having Aviel come on my podcast today. And I said, could you tell me something about her? And he said, he's 7 years old. He said, she is such a good principal.
Oh, that makes me feel so good. When the kids give me compliments, kids don't make things up. You know it's true. So I appreciate it.
You know what he said after, because as many of my listeners know, we're moving to another state and different school. And Shalom said, I think she'd be a really good principal in my new school too. So sweet.
Well, kids don't always know what it is that a principal does. The other day I was told that I keep everybody safe. And I said, that's a great definition of principal. But it's a pleasure and an honor, and it's joyous to be with the children in the Jewish world and be a part of their lives every day. They're so much fun.
I remember years back when Shalom was probably 2 or 3 years old. He was like in early childhood education in your school, and he was like rushing and pulling his bag, and he could barely hold his bag, like it was bigger than him. I said, where are you rushing? And he said, I have to go to school. Mrs. Brodkin is waiting for me. It's just like these beautiful quotes. But let me introduce Aviel. She has been, as we've said, a principal in the Jewish Day School here in Portland, Oregon for the last decade. But there is so much more to introduce Aviel. She's a Torah educator. She's a marriage educator. She's helped converts along their journey, their process. She's passionate about inspiring people and really helping people find the light that's within them, helping them take their steps towards living their most meaningful life. Aviel has lived in Israel. She's been a teacher there. She's lived in a couple places, right? Houston.
Not so many, but yeah, we did. It was wonderful. We were able to start off our journey in the U.S. being part of a outreach colo called Torch in Houston.
That's amazing. Well, thank God we've been very privileged to be on the receiving end of Aviel's gifts over here in this community. And I love this. And part of Aviel's bio, when I read it, it was just so perfect. She says that she fell in love with early childhood education in 2003 when she first entered the third grade classroom, and she's been giving her gifts ever since. So thank you for being here with us. I'm so excited to hear your thoughts, your knowledge, your wisdom on this approach that you have developed and worked in and been trained in called the nurtured heart approach. Will you share with us how did you get into it? How has it changed your life? And what can we learn from this?
Okay, so first of all, I want to say that Eve is a dear friend, and I love her podcast. I love listening to the array of speakers, hearing from all the women share personally how they are putting their impact on the world is something that we are all gaining from. So keep it up. We love it. And I'll tell you about my own journey. I'm here today because this has changed me. If I didn't feel that that nurtured heart approach was something that could revolutionize how you live your life, then I wouldn't be so passionate about sharing it with you today. So I want to spread the word because I'm all about growing people and growing ourselves. I think that's the most exciting part about having the gift of life. So I'm a principal. And what happens when you're a principal? So principals are generally, we're over idealistic and we are so dedicated to providing the best experience for children growing up. We want them to have every opportunity available to them. We don't want any barrier standing in their way. We want them to see the beauty of themselves and act on it. And so that means that like the kids in our school, they're like our own families.
Mm.
Like uh, I generally try not to put the school before my family, but my kids know that the school and the kids in the school they're like my own children. And that means that when you're in labor, you're a little nutty when you're a principal, like you will be in labor still at school. I've done this, like finishing the Haggadah before spring break, or coming in, a few weeks after you've had a baby, because you totally do not want to miss the first grade sitter party. Like, who in the world would want to miss giving out siddurim to these kids who are so excited to be able to start davening to Hashem and having a relationship with him? And even till the point of, I remember sometimes I look back, I say, what was I thinking? I do color war sometimes at the end of the year. I remember wrapping up teachers and toilet paper with kids in the school. And it was like that night was my son's bar mitzvah weekend. But I, but like, that's the joy. It's so much joy in a Jewish day school. It's such a gift to be part of it. But what happens when you're a principal, you also start to see all the holes. You have this vision of this great place where kids can grow up and receive a stellar academic experience, but you start to see the holes, and you start to see the holes in everyone around you. You start to see deficiencies everywhere you look. Oh, I need to fix this. I need to work on that. This could be improved. And you train your brain to think like that. And I know as moms and parents, a lot of us do this. This is where we fall. This is our hole. We start to look and scan the environment all the time for, oh, this isn't right. Oh, this needs to be fixed. And you can be a very positive, calm, incredible parent and have your mindset like this, right? Oh, this one, I don't know, they're not catching on quick enough. And this one doesn't know how to communicate so well. And this one gets frustrated too easily. And will this child ever be okay with wearing the clothes that I buy them, right? And
Aviel,
it's
I
a
just want to ask you, are you referring to the children mainly that you're seeing, or are you seeing deficiencies in the parents, in the families, in the staff?
everybody,
Okay.
everybody. And this approach changed me because it's not just about, like, I'm a very positive person, and everybody who's been to a parenting course knows that there's a 4-to-1 ratio. 4 positive interactions or comments for every 1 negative that's constructive. And that's what good parents and educators do. But this is different. The nurtured heart approach is literally teaching your brain to say, there is godless, there is greatness that's being expressed by everyone around me all the time. And you can learn to see the world like this. And this changed me. It changed me as an employer. Before I would say, like, ooh, that teacher is sounding like she needs a little vacation. They're at the end of their rope, and you hear it, like, you're like, ooh, cringe. And now it's like, I'm like, oh my goodness, that teacher has been up 4 times last night with kids, yet she is dressed and put together. She has something to do today. She is exhausted. And this woman is acting on her greatness to be here today. And you know what? If I really care, I'll come in and I'll take over her class for 10 extra minutes so she can breathe for a minute, and maybe have a bite to eat. So it's changed me.
Wow.
And why do we need to do that? I think that's the important question. Like, why? And it's because if you want your kids to grow their strengths, if you want your husband, your spouse, the people who work around you, you have to see their strengths. They don't know, especially kids. Kids do not understand themselves. I try to tell this example to people so they understand, like, how much kids don't know themselves. So, like, if you have a girl and she's first starting to get her menstrual cycle, like, they have no idea what that feeling is of cramps. And you have to tell them, okay, honey, what you're feeling right now is cramps. Here's some things you can do to relieve them. They're going to come on these days, right? So that's just a very easy example to explain. Kids don't understand themselves. They don't understand why sometimes their emotions are heightened, and why sometimes they're jumping for joy, and why sometimes they're able to just get into an assignment and knock it off like nobody's business. And sometimes they're just like, I don't know. And you have to help them. And you know why? This is hard to hear. By first grade, I'll watch a recess, and Eve, the kids already know who's best at soccer.
Oh,
They
wow.
already know. No one has to say a word. They already know which kids get picked first for the games.
Mm,
And they all, like, you could ask any, you go into any first grade classroom, say, who's great at soccer? And
mm.
they'll tell you. And everyone starts to figure things out. And if you don't come in as a teacher or a parent and say, I'm gonna actually teach you more about yourself than what the world just tells you based on what your experiences are. And that's what you're gonna do through the nurtured heart approach. So for an example, you could have kids are always writing their own portfolio based off their experiences in the day. So even if you have great people around your kids, or even if yourself, it's like, imagine like, um, let's say they have 18 different experiences with 18 different adults during the day. And it could even be said nicely. Get your shoes, we're late. Um, I, you don't have your shoes on yet. I already said it. Do you need help? um, Straight line, in a line, in a line. Yes, yes, you know. And they hear these comments throughout the whole day, and they get messages. I need to be fixed. I can't get it right on my own. Um, I'm not the first one picked to who to sit next to or who to partner with for math. And for some kids, they just get constant negative experiences, and they might not even be extreme. And then they're writing a portfolio based on that. And
Wow.
you as a parent have the ability to come in and say, no, we're going to help make that portfolio a different one where like you're going to learn about all the greatness that you're expressing all day long.
So it's
So
basically like all day there's reinforcement, right? All these interactions is reinforcing what they might have already felt in their mind. And then you're saying there's a opportunity to uproot it or to shake it up or to say,
yeah, and to add to it, give them a different view of themselves. Right. But they need an adult outside in their lives. They need their parent so badly to come in and say, um, you know, I'll give an example. I have a student who took an assessment, and, you know, kids in older grades share assessment scores. And the student knew exactly where they fell. Right. So that student comes to me and says, you know, I'm not such a strong student.
"Mm,
Right. So this is also the student who could, if you gave them any materials, they could go in and they create the most sophisticated, detailed engineering, STEM focused
um,
project imaginable. But they can't make the connection about that's a sign of intelligence. An adult has to come in and tell them that. So you need to be there and you have to see it with your eyes. In the nurtured heart approach, which was originally by Howard Glazer, he talks about like you as a parent need to come in and you take this small thing that's happening and you zoom in and enlarge it. And you say, look what you just did. You act like a mirror for your kid. You're just a mirror. You just have to say it. And kids can't argue with what's the truth. If you say, that's amazing, that's terrific, um, they can argue. But if you say, did you see how you were able to take all those things and create this whole project here and solve this problem? And then you could say to them the value behind that. That really shows your creativity. That really shows your ingenuity. They have to be like, oh, that's truth.
so what age does this work until? Because what I'm hearing you say is that it goes really beyond childhood, right? This is
So
something that you could
yeah.
do with coworkers and your spouse. So, but does it get harder as kids get older, as you turn into an adult? Does it get harder are we more jaded to hear, to receive that input?
I actually have seen that my experience is that adults are starved for someone to see their greatness because kids in schools, at least, were teachers and everyone, they're so cute and easy to love, right? They let you love them so much more. And adults sometimes will put up a barrier and you get harder to, we don't show how much we need it, but every human wants to be seen. They, every human wants to express how great they are. They want to make this world a better place. They want to impact the world for the better. And like, if you start to see it in them, it grows. So this isn't new ideas, but this is about training your brain. And I want to tell you, of course I slip. Of course, there's times I'm better at it than others, like a diet, right? We all know we're supposed to eat certain things, whole grain foods. And like, there are times you're better and sometimes you're worse. But I want to tell you, when I'm on top of it and I'm doing it, my husband looks different. My
Mm.
colleagues look different. My life looks different.
Wow.
You know, I look
Wow.
different to myself. And if you just took a moment and said, look, today I got up. Today I got everyone out the door, right? We don't celebrate these things. Today I gave that hug when I really could have been tearing that child's hair out. Or, you know, I stayed patient while I was in the car. Um, I took that phone call I didn't really feel I had energy to. And that really shows how generous of a spirit I have. Like talking to yourself like that. One of the very first parts of Nurtured Heart Approach is not energizing negativity. And that is not energizing negativity, the messages we tell ourselves, not energizing when our kids are acting negatively. Um, that means we don't, I'll explain a little bit more, but I'd love to share with you how I came to the Nurtured Heart Approach.
Yes.
Okay, so it's personal. So I pride myself on being this educator, woohoo, right? And I had my first couple of kids, and then came a kid who, like, even when this child was born, I was like, her fingers are different, her nose is different, her forehead is different. Like, this kid's different. And I feel like the best story to explain her is this story about like when we'll go out to coffee. You know, sometimes we both have Jewish names. And like, I'm more like measured and filtered, um, and maybe a little more logical. And this child's vibrant and colors and dances. Um, and Eve sometimes refers to her as like it's like a little mini Eve. So when I take this kid out for coffee, like sometimes we don't want to, when they say like, write your name on the side of the cup. And like, we both don't want to get into like our Jewish names that you can't pronounce and you can't spell. So I'd be like, Sue. And this kid one time said, Cassandra. And this child was in 8th grade. And I could start to feel that something was different. They didn't feel that they were the most wanted friend in their group. They were younger in their group. I could feel the tension, and I was showing up for her in a way that wasn't meeting her. It was like I just started to feel distance building, and it felt so wrong. Something felt so off, and I never had this experience before as a parent. And one of the things I always try to tell my parents is your job is to keep your fingers on the pulse, especially a woman or mother. Always keep your pulse on the relationship. Something doesn't feel right, you're probably going to be the first one to notice. So put your ear down to the track and know what will happen if you don't move now. And you'll be the first one to be able to make movement. And it's an honor and responsibility that we're able to pick up on these things so that you can make a change while you still can. And it came to a standstill. I remember at one point where like I was really broken up about how I could tell I wasn't being able to reach this kid. And I started to observe because it hit me one time. We're in the kitchen and my husband said something to her. And all of a sudden I saw this child light up, and it was like my husband had a key into her. And I was like, I don't have that key. Why does he have the key? What key is this? And I would notice that, you know, like he kind of stand in the background a lot in the parenting, but like he would come in sometimes and just say the perfect words of like, wow, you know, when you communicate like that, your expression is so developed and mature. And I'd be like, and I'd watch this kid just totally come alive. And I realized I needed to start viewing this child very differently. There was like a whole different mindset change that needed to happen. And so I knew that some schools were taking on the nurtured heart approach. And I said, you know what? I'll get some books. So I got the nurtured heart approach books. And I was like, what? I don't get this. I understand the 4-to-1 positive ratio. I understand about saying nice things. But I was like, this is different. This is about literally changing how I view people, knowing how to put it into words, and seeking opportunity to highlight the other person's greatness. And it has to be so authentic. It can't just be like, oh, it's my job to say nice things. It's like not just reinforcing behavior. It's like, that's why it's called the nurtured heart approach. There isn't like a one exact way to do it. I'll explain the steps to it. But like the most important part I tell my teachers when we do trainings is like, it has to come from here. And when it comes from here and it's real for you, then it goes into the other person. So I started doing it. And I have to say that this is the child that I had the most special, such a deep relationship. I took a group of 8th graders on a Shabbaton a couple weeks ago. And at a certain point, I love my 8th graders, but you know, they're 8th graders. And there was, I don't know, I think like I got called at midnight to, one of the girls wanted to change her outfit. She didn't think she looked good. And I was like calm and good, but like, I was like, oh my gosh. And I was not in my nurtured heart place. And I called this child of mine. She's my empathetic, big-hearted child. And once I could view her differently, once I could express it, once she could see that I could see her greatness and we built on it, our relationship is so different. She now is like, Mom, you view me as a person that you can share frustrations with. That means you honor me, you value me, you value my gifts. So that's why I'm a big seller of this approach.
It's so beautiful.
And that's how I came to it. And so I did it at home for 9 months. And then that September, I brought it to the school. And it's everywhere. It's just like, it's something that flows from teacher to teacher, from administrator to colleagues, and you have to work on it. It's definitely an avoda.
Did your daughter, did she understand that you were like having a textbook in front of you and trying to work through building this relationship with her, or was it a very organic change that happened between the two of you?
She figured it out later because I think I started talking about it more with all my kids. I think I felt like I was breaking my teeth to get into it. And a lot of it was being quiet. So I'll tell you what that means also. That nurtured heart approach is built on 3 stands. The first one is absolutely no. The second one is absolutely yes, and absolutely clear. So absolutely no means our kids value relationship with us and our energy more than most anything in their lives. So if you only show up in your kids' lives as soon as you hear rumbling, right? You're in the kitchen, and then all of a sudden you hear a little rumbling in the living room, and that's when you show up. That's when you're the most even if like, I'm talking about good parenting, but still, like, that's when you have something to say. That's a time when you interact with them, is when they didn't load the dishwasher exactly right. Or, or that's when we really do. We show up when it's like, did you take your homework out, right? Instead of like all the other times, right, that we could be putting our energy in. So absolutely no is no showing up with our energy for everything that's negative. Show up so much more at the other times. Be bright, be energetic. Like when you see them doing something that's like, hey, I have a 4-year-old, but Sheva, you worked so long on getting those socks on today, and you're animated about it. Right? You found your shoes. Though I said to you they're in the kitchen, but I really meant the play kitchen. You found them anyways.
What if it's not your personality to be so energetic? For you and I, this might be easy because we're
Right?
excited people. But what if someone has a lower energy? Could they even, would it be faking it if they were like trying so hard to show
Yeah.
up that way?
I think it's a perfect question because that's what I try to tell people, the nurtured heart approach. Everyone has their own channel for energy.
Mhm.
Um, like my father-in-law, he's a little quieter. The way he will sit with my kids
Mm.
and listen to them, that's his energy channel. And
Wow.
they all consider his energy precious.
Wow. Okay. It's important to know that because
Yeah.
the way that you're describing it might
It,
sound
it,
exhausting to some people, right?
it can, but when you start to see it work, when you start, and um, this is this is something I want to end off with. I had a student who I knew was coming into my school. So it's always hard when kids start new schools. They're coming with different values. Um, they may not be familiar with such a warm, nurturing school environment, and they might not trust what the school experience is like. I know I have to build a relationship pretty quickly with a student when they come in, help them to get the feel of what Mayan Torre School is going to be like. So I had a student I knew was coming, and another administrator had met with the student and actually had some negative interactions that were rough with them. And so before the student was going to come into me, I was like, now my kids know. I was like, guys, we're going to use nurtured heart today. And I just sat there and I just sat next to this child and I asked them questions about themselves and I found out what was interesting for them. And this child and I have been able to build, it's such a rewarding relationship. And this child has let me into his heart. And this kid brings me muffins and I can't even tell you, he comes to my house, Shabbos, with little dessert packs. You couldn't believe that this child could love at the level that he does. And so what I want to say is that you asked about like, it's exhausting. You have to do it at your level, but
Right.
when you start to see it, this is long term. It took me 9 months to start to feel a difference, 6 months, maybe more with my child, but it's longer term. And I think it wasn't so long ago. It was like close to the end of school. It was right before COVID or something. Um, this kid came to me and said, "Mrs. Brodkin, what's your favorite color?" And this is not a young kid, by the way, just letting everyone know, it's not a young kid. So I said green. And a couple weeks later, this hand carved wooden sign with my name comes to the office that this kid worked on for weeks. And it's up in my office. So when you say it's exhausting, it's sometimes it's true to put energy up front, but like what you get to experience, and it's such a happy life. Can you imagine what a happy life? You get to walk around and see the beauty of people and expressing it.
And there is no greater weapon in the world than education, right? It's
Yeah.
our greatest strength. And whether it's at home or if you're in the educational field, it's huge. And I believe very strongly because I didn't have such a amazing education, my experience from what my childhood was, like when I think back, like I'd rather just block a lot of it out. There were so many years that I wish I would feel nurtured and celebrated, and I was that kid that had a lot of that um yeah. So what I want to say is that at the end of the day, at the end of all the years that we put in school and at home, all those 18 years of our lives until we move on to the next level, we may not remember all that was taught to us. We might not, we might forget our whatever, like the MC3 whatever, like all the algebra and all the details, but what we will remember is how we were meant to feel,
Yeah.
the way people made us feel. And this is true in every aspect of our lives. It's not about the details, it's about the feeling. It's about really touching a heart and leaving an impression that you matter and that you have what to give to the world. So what I've learned from you today, from this approach, this beautiful nurtured heart approach, is that there are very simple shifts that create huge change and really could change everything. So yeah, so amazing. So how could we hear more about this?
Yeah, wonderful. So the very first thing is I'll tell you that you can look up the Nurtured Heart approach. I'll tell you more, just a little bit more about it as well. I also work with parents. I do trainings. If you'd like to reach out to me, my email is aviel@parentinghearts.com. And I very much enjoy watching parents set ideas of where they want to see their relationships and households and with their kids and make movement with it slowly. It's exciting. So anyone's able to reach out to me. The other thing is I'd love to just share a little bit more about the practical pieces. Well, so we covered the first one about not giving energy to negativity. And that doesn't mean you ignore. It just talks about toning down and when you show up in your kids' lives and not putting a lot of yourself in when they've broken a rule or are starting to act out. And the last one is absolutely clear. You must have very clear rules and boundaries and reinforce them. Everybody wants to know the rules of the game.
Mm,
It's just not fair. You can't ask someone to be successful without telling them the rules. So an example can be, I don't know if any of you have ever gotten a parking ticket, but I remember I never knew you're not supposed to park on the side of the street the wrong direction. So I remember the first time I got a parking ticket, and I was like, if I only knew, that was so silly. Like, I just didn't know. Um, it's the same thing with kids. So like today, this morning, I have a child, we're working with them. We we do a check-in in the morning. Okay, this is how the day is going to look. I'm going to pull you at 11 to get you started on your work and get you back to class. Here's a little card. This card says you could come and take a break in my office for 5 minutes at any time today. And I also want to let you know, you're going to hear, I'm going to count to 5 and I expect you to do this from your teacher. And this is all pre-made. If you're not there by then that means this is going to happen. So teach your kids the rules, let them be successful and hold to them. So this is that nurtured heart approach. The biggest part of it is that middle one, which is absolutely yes. It's about giving recognitions, how they sound. There's an art for it, but you can also just do what comes from your heart. It's about acting like a mirror. There's so many things, there's a million things you could say that you can see that your kids are doing. I just walked into school today. There's 2 first graders fighting over the first spot in line. Now in my head, right, I could be thinking, hey guys, we're all getting to the classroom within 5 seconds of each other. How big is this problem, right? Or I could also look, which is a fine thing to say, but I also could say, oh my goodness, you guys, look at you. You're both using your words. You haven't used your hands and you're trying to work out this problem you have.
mm,
Wow, that's learning to work together. That's using your communication skills, whatever. You hear the difference of like showing them that greatness. Then they're taught to understand it. Oh, this is good. Oh, let me act on that again. When you have success, then you're most likely, the science says, to repeat it, feel good about it, do it again, and continue to build themselves. So that's the basic art of it. And
mm.
yeah, I recommend people giving it a try, being focused on it. Have maybe someone that you like a friend who says, how's it going for you? Are we both starting to stay in this mindset and really give it a good go to try to nurture our children more?
I love it. I love it. I think it was Aristotle that there's a quote that I heard. He said, educating the mind without educating the heart is no education at all. And
Yeah.
yeah, this is like a whole new approach. And I wish it would spread. I wish it would spread to other principals in other cities. I think my Shalom is like holding on to Mrs. Brodkin, like he's hoping like they'll catch on to this wherever else we go. So thank you so much. Thank
Sure,
you
my pleasure.
for your holy work. It's
Oh, it is so rewarding to be able to spend your time with the future of Klal Yisrael. These children are very dear to us. And I also want to say there are a lot of schools using the Nurtured Heart approach, a lot of professionals.
that's great.
So it is getting out there. And it's something that a lot of us are doing already, but you could do it on a more sophisticated, intense way that you will really reap the benefits from, and you'll see you'll be a changed person. You really will. And you'll have much more rewarding, a more satisfying life when you can walk around and just say like, wow, I can see what my husband did. I can see what this colleague did. I can see what my kids did in a whole new way of their expressing their godless, their greatness at every moment. So thank you so much for having me on today.
Thank you so much, Aviel. Thanks for all you do. Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Take
Thanks
care.
for
Bye bye.
joining us.